everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is, no, don't knock the tripod. This is Joli. Together we make houseplant videos. And in today's video, we're going to be taking you through everything you need to know about string of pearls plants, as well as giving you lots of tips and tricks for faster and fuller growth. So string of pearls, Latin name Senecio Rowleyanus, please don't judge me on my pronunciation, that was a really hard one to say, are a really common, beautiful houseplant that are super easy to take care of once you get the hang of what they like and don't like. While you might be able to just get away with guessing with some of your other houseplants, these ones are likely to throw a tantrum pretty quickly if you don't get the balance right. But as I say, once you found it, they're super easy, chilled, low maintenance houseplants. This one's just a standard, normal string of pearls, and I've also got some little variegated string of pearls cuttings propagating here. Their care needs are pretty much the same. However, as with lots of variegated plants, the white bits of the plant actually can't absorb light in the same way as the green. So although, as I say, care needs pretty much the same, these ones will just require slightly more light than your standard string of pearls. I'll talk about that more as we go on. One thing that's important to say straight away is that these plants are highly toxic. So if you've got pets or children, then make sure they're up high in a hanger, well out of reach. So string of pearls are native to Southwest Africa, and in their natural habitat, their vines are actually capable of growing up to 4 feet long. Caring for your string of pearls essentially means trying to recreate conditions that are as similar as possible to where they originate from, which makes them sound really high maintenance and complex, but I promise you they're not. When it comes to light, these ones do best in what's known as bright indirect light, which basically just means an area that receives lots of natural bright daylight, but not too much direct harsh sun. They're fine with low levels of direct light. So for example, gentle morning and evening sun when the sun's rays aren't so harsh, but too much direct midday sun can actually cause their leaves to burn. For the spring and summer months, I usually keep my string of pearls hanging in an east-facing window, and then during the darker winter months, I'll move her to a south-facing window, and she seems really happy with that, she told me. They can also be grown under full-spectrum grow lights and do really well. I've actually made a video specifically about grow lights if you're not quite sure about that, so I will link that above. With the standard green string of pearls, you should place them in an area that they can receive about 8 to 9 hours of bright and direct light a day. And with the variegated string of pearls, ideally they would be receiving about 10 hours of light a day. If your string of pearls isn't looking as green and vibrant as you'd like it to be, then one of the most common causes for this is lack of light. So consider maybe moving it slightly closer to a light source. Another really easy way to tell that your plant might not be getting enough light is that the little pearly bits become a lot more spaced out on the vine, making it look quite long and stretched as opposed to full and bushy. If it starts to look quite stretched and leggy, another thing you can do is actually prune back some of the new growth and propagate it, like I'm doing with my little variegated one here. This not only allows you to create new little baby plants, but it also just allows the main body of your plant to focus its energy on the full, healthy growth instead of trying to push out new growth when perhaps the conditions aren't quite right. This basically just means that if you prune it and then move it to a higher light spot, the new growth should be a lot fuller and bushier. On the flip side, lighting-wise, if you notice brown patches or spots appearing on your plant's leaves and it's already in a highlight spot, this could actually be that it's receiving too much sunlight and it's causing the leaves of the plant to burn. If you suspect that this could be the case, then consider moving your plant back from the light source slightly or providing it with some kind of filter or shade canopy so that the light isn't quite so intense. Watering your string of pearls can be the area where people tend to, a lot of the time, go a little bit wrong. So many of the common issues, such as shriveled growth or bare vines, particularly towards the top of the plant, are almost always down to a watering imbalance. These plants are really, really drought tolerant, meaning that they can go a long period of time without water and cope much better with underwatering as opposed to overwatering. It is so ridiculously easy to overwater these plants. I've done it myself before, so just remember that on the whole with these ones, less is always more. They're succulents and store a lot of water in their leaves, meaning that if they look kind of plump and full and you're umming and ahhing about whether or not you should water yet, they'll probably be absolutely fine if you leave it another few days or so. Shriveled leaves can either mean that they're super thirsty, or it can also actually be a symptom of overwatering as well, so I'll go into more detail on that in a minute. The most important thing to remember with these ones is that they like their soil to almost completely dry out before you water them again. I'll usually just stick my finger down to the soil and feel, but you can also use a moisture meter for this if you're not quite sure. If you water them too soon and they're not quite ready for a drink yet, you risk causing issues such as root rot, dropping leaves, shriveled leaves, bare vines, and as I said earlier, you usually notice this first towards the top of the pots. I almost said top of the pots then. Oh dear. So yeah, a common problem that I see a lot is that the leaves at the top will kind of either drop off or look quite deflated or shriveled or rotting, leaving the vines kind of really, really bare. I'll pop some pictures in because I feel like I'm not explaining this very well. As I say, this is often due to overwatering, and although your plant might bounce back after a while and be absolutely fine, it's important to resolve this quickly, just because if it's sitting in soggy soil and the roots are surrounded by water that they don't need, can't absorb, then this can cause root rot. Root rot, if it's not dealt with quickly, can kill your plants pretty fast. I've talked about some ways before that you can treat root rot, so I'll post that in the description box below. With the environment of my home, I tend to water my string of pearls probably about once every 2 weeks during the warmer summer months, and then about once a month during the colder winter months. This could be completely different for you depending on the conditions of your home. For example, how much light it's receiving, how much heat it's getting, etc., etc. So yeah, just make sure the soil is almost completely dry before you rewater. When you do come to water, thoroughly soak the soil through and make sure you allow it enough time to properly drain before you put it back into its pretty pot or anything like that, just because, again, inadequate drainage can lead to root rot. The reason these plants are so low maintenance is because once you've found the right spot for them and they're happy there, then you can often go weeks on end without watering them, and they're really, really forgiving if you forget to water them every now and again. I mentioned this in another video recently as well, but if you know that you're particularly prone to overwatering, then using terracotta pots can be a really brilliant way to help regulate this. Terracotta is a breathable material and it essentially allows water to pass through it, meaning that if you go a little bit overboard at some point, it will help to extract some of the moisture from the soil. During the growing season, which is the spring and summer months, in order to keep your string of pearls happy, healthy, growing as they should be, then it's really important to fertilise them on a regular basis. I say during growing season just because fertilising your plants regularly outside of growing season can actually do them a lot more harm than good, because they're not growing at the same rate and they don't need any extra nutrients. I tend to use a gentle, natural, diluted fertiliser more or less every other time I water during growing season. I also really love making my own plant fertiliser. It's really fun, it saves you money, which is always good. And yeah, keeps your plants happy and healthy. I also made a video about that, so I'll link that video above if anyone's interested. If you're using a shop-bought fertiliser, just make sure you read the label really, really carefully and check exactly how much you need to dilute it, just because overdoing it can cause a build-up of chemicals and minerals in the soil and also cause something called fertiliser burn. Wow, my words. Fertiliser burn can look like brown spots or patches that appear on the plant's leaves, and also with these ones it has a tendency to stunt their growth and also make them kind of shrivel up and not look very nice. Mind your tail. I accidentally over-fertilised one of mine a few years ago. She really wasn't happy. In the end, I had to repot her and I just laid off the fertiliser for a few months and she bounced back just fine. At the end of growing season, something I tend to do for pretty much all of my plants is just give the soil a really thorough rinse through, just to get rid of any excess salt or minerals that might have built up in the soil. Obviously, always wait until your plants are actually ready for a water before you do this, otherwise you risk overwatering. But just give the soil a really, really good rinse. You don't need to actually take it out of the pot or anything like that, but just give it several really good soakings through, just so that any minerals, chemicals, salts, anything like that can just be flushed away. Obviously, it just kind of goes without saying, but after doing this, make sure you leave your plants enough time to properly drain. When it comes to temperature, these ones like it to be on the warmer side and really don't cope very well in cold conditions. So ideally, a steady temperature of about 20 to 29 degrees Celsius is ideal for them. I found that these ones cope really brilliantly in lower humidity conditions. So over the winter months, the spot that I move her to is fairly close to a radiator, but that just keeps her nice and warm and happy. I obviously wouldn't say the same about a lot of other houseplants, but so long as the air in your house isn't too dry to begin with, then these ones won't complain. If the humidity levels are already quite low where you live, while the radiators are on, you can hang wet towels, wet clothes, put bowls of water and stuff like that over them, just so that it keeps the humidity level balanced without drying your air out even more. Ideally, string of pearls enjoy about 40 to 50% humidity, which can be pretty standard for a lot of homes here in the UK, but as I say, they can absolutely cope in lower humidity conditions as well. In terms of the type of soil these ones like, as I've already mentioned, drainage is key. They absolutely hate sitting in soggy soil, so finding a soil mix that allows water to kind of go in and out quite quickly and not retain too much moisture is really, really important. I tend to use just a standard cacti and succulent potting mix and then just mix through a little bit of extra sharp sand and grit to allow for extra drainage. The thing that you want to avoid is a soil that's quite dense, for example, just kind of a standard houseplant potting soil, just because it holds on to moisture. Hello. Just because, yeah, it holds on to the moisture, and while some plants might absolutely love that, chances are string of pearls is going to kick up a stink pretty quickly. If you're happy with how to care for your string of pearls, but you just wish that the growth was a little bit fuller and bushier, what you can actually do is take some cuttings from your existing plant and propagate them like I'm doing with the variegated ones, and then just plant them straight back into the top of the soil. Also, if your plant's been going downhill and you're worried that you might lose it, you can also just take cuttings from the healthy part of the plant, propagate them, and then essentially start over. I won't get into all the different methods of propagation in this video just because I feel like I've probably waffled on for long enough. But if anybody wants to know more about that, then let me know in the comments below and I will absolutely make a video on it. I really hope this video was useful. If anyone's got any questions or anything like that, let me know down below and I'll do my best to help. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.